What's up guys, Anfield here, welcome back to a new video. And before we get into today's video, I just want to talk about why there hasn't been as much YouTube content recently. And basically it's because the microphone that I had broke. It just suddenly stopped working. It doesn't work on any other PC. It registers and everything, but you cannot record any sound with it. Not sure what happened to it. I don't know. It wasn't that old. Really no idea why it did that. So obviously that was a big problem for me. Caused me a lot of stress. But fortunately, Andrea from the stream, who you may remember as the guy that likes to troll you guys with weeb song requests, was like, I got a spare one, you can buy my old one. So he sent that over to me, and it's basically it took a really long time before I was notified about anything from the tracking, and then eventually it's said that custom charges have been raised. You're going to be sent a letter about how much you have to pay to release the microphone. So I was like, I can't wait anymore, I need a new microphone. So I bought one. Well, it's basically the same one he was going to send me off of Amazon. So I paid for 1 day shipping on that. Then literally the next day I got the letter saying how much I'd have to pay. £47, by the way. Wow. Yeah, that really sucked. So and then the microphone did eventually arrive way late in the day. And then I found out that I bought the wrong microphone, and the microphone that I'd bought, which I thought was a USB one, was not. And I'd apparently bought the one that is like meant for like recording acoustic audio, like guitars and things like that. So yeah, I didn't have a usable mic. So I had one that I couldn't use, and then one that was still stuck in customs, and then yeah, so had to actually go out and buy an emergency microphone. But huge thank you to Andrea for all the help he's given me over the past few weeks in regards to this. It's been a big stressful ordeal, but hopefully now, after Tankfest at least, I'll be able to get back into a regular rhythm again. We'll be making more videos, more streams and things like that. Did quite a few streams, quite a long session of streams. Haven't made much videos aside from this one yet, but you know, I plan to get back on that after Tankfest, which is this weekend, by the way. If you're going to Tankfest, if you see me, I'll be there on the Saturday. I'll be hanging out in Weymouth on the Friday. If you see me, come up and say hi. It's really cool to see you guys. Anyway, let's get into the video. So the video title is Let's Talk About Ranked, and that's what we're going to do because a lot of you guys on the stream have asked me what my opinion is on the ranked battle mode. So I hope that this video sort of serves as an opinion piece that you can be referenced to and will hopefully satisfy you guys. Now, the ranked battle mode, of course, I did make a video on the subject after I played it on the test server. Now, things have changed in terms of the fact that we've had a chance to play it on the live server. So we can talk a little bit about how that sort of happened and how I've sort of felt about playing it on the live server. But also, I'll talk a little bit about the improved equipment in terms of what you might want to put the improved equipment on, what tanks you might want to think about, what pieces you might want to think about. But I'm not going to go back into the discussion because I've already visited the discussion of should they be in random battles, etc, etc. We're not going to get into that. I already did that. So my first experience of playing the ranked battle was actually, I was on the European server, and obviously that window opened up earlier because of, you know, time zones, and it was interesting. I mean, I kind of learned some stuff that I could translate later into the NA server, and when that opened up, I was still streaming, so we played that. That was the first few days of ranked that I played, but unfortunately, I mean, for me, NA is open at 1 AM to 4 AM my time, which means I have to stay up really, really late in order to play the ranked battle mode. Now, obviously, most people on these servers will be playing during the peak time, so it won't be such an issue for them. Obviously, it's a big issue for me, but even still, it's a few hours every night that you'd have to basically commit to rank, and then it's like every night of the month. You know, it's not just like some nights out of the week, it's like every single night. So if you wanted to be really competitive, you would have to play. I played the first 3 days, and after that, I was done. I mean, the first 2 days, I think I was rank 1 on the NA server, and then rank 3 after the third day. I can't remember exactly, but I couldn't do it anymore. It's just way too much for me to like play that amount of hours that late at night. But even still, if I was to play on EU, there's no way like every single evening I would want to commit to ranked battles. It's just not how I envision doing it. The solution to this is quite difficult though, because you have to argue that ranked does need to be in a confined space due to the fact that obviously you want to avoid rigging and things like that, so you put it at peak time so that most people can play, although not everyone can. People work different kind of shifts and things like that, so it is a little bit exclusive in that regards, even to those that are in the proper time zone. But it's difficult. I mean, ultimately, when you have the ranked battle be every single night of the week, I understand that gives everyone an opportunity, but also, you know, if you want to be fully competitive, you can just keep going infinitely. The way the ranked battles work is once you get the top rank, it's not too difficult to get the top ranked every single night. I did or every single stage I've done it in the first night, gotten to rank 5 or whatever the max one is, and then after that you just do vehicle rank. So the way it works is you can infinitely progress, which means if you did want to be like at the top or near the top, you do have to play a lot, like a lot. And you know, putting it at peak time means you're skipping over like clan wars, I guess, and you know, all the other stuff like if you just want to generally pub with your friends but feel like you need the improved equipment, it does have a big impact on whether you can actually do that sort of thing. So there's a big problem there, I think, with the timing. But I still stand by exactly what I said in my first video on the ranked battles, and that's that I think the ranking system is too basic. I don't think it really works for the game. You know, you gain or you lose a chevron. It's not very indicative to how well or poorly you did in the battle. Ultimately, a lot of it can be bound to whether you win or lose with a good team, or whether you just farm at the very back of the map and let your team lose and hope for that top 3 spot. I don't think it really works exactly. I think there could be a much more complex numbering system that goes into it. I think with, you know, other games, they do have some basic systems, but a lot of these systems are based around 5v5, whereas Wargaming, you know, they have to deal with a game that's 15 versus 15 in a ranked mode. So ultimately, whether you win or lose is not a strong enough indication of your, you know, actual performance, because you can take a good position in a battle and have a pretty decent game, but if some tank destroyer sat in the back and farmed 4 kills at the very end of the battle that your team softened up, they're gonna rank up, not you, even though you did a lot more damage, but maybe didn't get the kill shots because you were doing the initial damage. But I think a more complex system would actually help the game, where you get a certain number or lose a certain number depending on how well you do, and then have that number be, I don't know, 1.2 times the amount if you win and a normal rate if you lose the game. So what I'm explaining most closely resembles like WN8 and personal rating and things like that, which is where you get a number and that goes up or down depending on how well or poorly you do in a battle, which I think is a bit of a fairer system. So let's say you get a ranked battle and you get between -25 or +25, and anywhere between that number depends on 1, if you win or not, and 2, how well you do in that battle. So you may have a meh battle and you lose 5, or maybe you have a pretty good battle and you gain 16, I don't know. I think this would be a bit of a fairer system and also allow for a sort of moving average, so you can sort of better establish where better players are in the ranked mode. Because, you know, if you have, I don't know, let's say we take the personal rating system where it goes much higher than something like WN8, you have your best players at around 11,000-12,000, and then your really good players at 9 to 10k, and then you're sort of more up there but middling, you know, the 8, 9, or well, 7, 8, 9 kind of region as well. So, you know, I think this would work a lot better, and that way, you know, just because you play every single night for 4 hours straight plus doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the #1 rated player, because your performance is much more important after you get to a certain rating. And that way, if you did a system like that, you could say, like, you know, the first rank is at 1,000, and then 2,000, and 3,000, something like that. I don't know. I'm just throwing numbers out there, but I hope you get the general idea of what I'm going for. I much prefer something like that than you win or lose a chevron. Like, it's just so basic. So yeah, I mean, that's when it comes down to that. That's what I think the bigger issue is, because then the timing of the ranked battles isn't as important. You know, at the moment it is kind of bad that basically you can sort of just play non-stop at the time, but those that can't are kind of screwed. So I would really like the rating system to be addressed. So for me, the ranking system is something with a more obvious solution, while not necessarily an easy solution in order to fix it up. But the timing one is a little bit more complicated. Like I was saying earlier, you can't really move it that much because obviously peak time is when most people can play, etc, etc. Now, it would be good, as I mentioned in my previous video, if you were able to earn bonds through random battle missions and other things like that. But I was sort of brainstorming on the stream the other day, and I don't know whether it would work, but it might be possible to make ranked, instead of an actual separate mode, have it as a normal mode in the public realm, so that it's on all the time. But in order to be activated, you need a full tier 10 match, which is quite common in Matchmaker, and that can kick it into ranked battle. But in order to have it so that you can choose whether you play ranked or not, you could have it set up the same way as you have Encounter and Assault as optional choices. So you could have another button that you check that you are allowing your tank to go into ranked. So if you're playing tier 10, you get a full tier 10 match with other people, you get it kicked into a ranked battle mode, which may go some way towards alleviating some of the pressure on people. In order to, play ranked, you have to play during a very specific time zone for a long period of time, and this may help that a little bit, make it a little bit more spontaneous in these battles, etc, etc. Now, whether that would really work or not, I'm not not sure, but it could be an interesting concept that they could try out at the very least. The only other things I could think of that they might want to try is reducing the amount of players in a battle to maybe 10 vs 10, 7 vs 7, 5 vs 5, because when you have a ranking system that's entirely based on whether you win or lose, it's harder to influence a win or a loss in a 15 vs 15 battle, especially when the players are pretty good. I mean, winning randoms is one thing, you know, obviously, while you may have bad teammates, you're usually against bad enemies, so you can have a big influence. In a ranked battle, that's not really the case, so having such a large team, it's quite difficult for any one person to really influence that much, which, you know, does sort of limit your ability to progress in some cases and put it more down to the RNG of your team, or whether you get a chevron or not, which isn't very helpful. So that's another thing they could look at doing, and if it's a smaller amount of players, maybe they could look at extending the amount of time you could play ranked battles. As long as that's introduced with a new rating system, I don't really see a problem with extending the amount of time. The only worry would be rigging, I suppose, but whether that would be a real issue or not, I don't know. But I think it could work out, and I think it could be interesting to at least try it. So what should you put your improved equipment on, and what improved equipment should you pick? Well, that depends on the tank, although 95% of them I would probably say an improved rammer is the best option. You can't really beat an improved reload speed on most tanks. It really is going to make a big difference, and the longer the reload, the bigger the difference you will see. I think the E100 got down to like 14 seconds something when I tried it on the test server, so that's pretty crazy. So that's something you might want to think about. Now, what else could you do? Well, it really depends. There's a lot of tanks that can't use rammers, such as autoloaders, in which case you may have to look at the stabilizer as the next best option for those tanks. So an improved stabilizer could be very interesting on tanks like the Batchat, which have poor gun handling. Shrinking that reticle permanent size is quite a big improvement to a tank like the Batchat, so that could be interesting to take a look at. You could argue for the GLD, but I don't know, I think you would still go for improved stabilization for those snaps, more so than the improved GLD, which is more for a stationary target. Not something you get as much use out of, I think. You're more moving around, clipping people, so definitely the stabilizer first. But then you have tanks that don't have autoloaders that you could also consider putting a stabilizer on first, if not eventually second. Those tanks are like the 430 and the STB-1. The 430 is basically the highest reloading Russian medium. The 430, despite having the highest DPM of all of the Russian mediums, is generally considered to be the weakest due to the fact that the gun handling is pretty poor in the tank, so an improved stabilizer improving the gun could be quite a significant upgrade for the Object 430. So just a few things you might want to consider for those of you that are wondering what you're going to put your improved equipment on. But that's pretty much that, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. I will be looking to make a 62A3 Mark video. I 3 marked it recently on the European server. It was the very first 3 mark video I uploaded, but it was a stream highlight, and I think the commentary goes a little bit further towards helping people with how to play a tank and positioning and things like that. So I'm going to make a full video on it with commentary, so I hope you guys look forward to that. But until then, I'll catch you guys next time.